Hey hipsters, what's up? It's Blake. Today we're finishing up the set review for Warhammer 40k. If you missed any of the other parts, they're the previous videos. I have a video detailing all the commanders going through the whole set. And then my previous video, the first part to this video, where we covered all the monocolor cards in the set. And today we're going to be covering the rest of the set, which is multicolor cards, artifacts, and a land. If you like the content, feel free to subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff. I got deck techs, all that good stuff coming up again soon. Stay tuned. Brothers War is almost done getting spoiled, so you'll see plenty of videos coming about that as well. So not going to bullshit around. Let's get into it. First up, Assault Intercessor. 1 white black for a 3/2 Astartes warrior. It has first strike and menace. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. I don't know where this card goes, but it is extremely annoying for your opponents. Any sort of sacrificey aristocrats deck is going to have a really hard time with this card sitting on the battlefield. It's very efficiently costed with lots of good keywords, good stats. Yeah, this card's just a decent little beater / blocker, and also it just has a really annoying effect on it. Any sort of board wipe is going to dome your opponents for a lot if they have any sort of board going. So I don't know where this card specifically goes, but this is definitely a powerful card. That you will see at some point. I'd put it like good to great. Not great. Adeline Jackal. 1 red and a green for a 2/2 human Tyranid scout with trample and haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. You would think that this would be great, considering like Farhaven elves, wood elves, stuff like that. Some stuff that sees play in the format a lot. If you cast this on turn 3, you are quite likely to get a land. And if you're really lucky, maybe 2. But the reason I think this card is worse than Wood Elves and Farhaven Elves is those are guaranteed to get you a land, while this card is certainly not. And this is a very bad late game top deck for sure. So I think that this card is like not terrible, but it's definitely not good. It's like mediocre at best, I would say. I could see it seeing play in specific decks, but even in those decks, it's just a role player, just a card that helps fill out your deck, really. So yeah, this is just mediocre at best. Birth of the Imperium. 2 white, blue, black for Enchantment Saga. Chapter 1, you create a 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature token with vigilance for each opponent you have, so 3 presumably. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, and then draw 2 cards for each opponent who controls fewer creatures than you. I've seen this card in play a few times, and it's actually impressed me quite a bit. It is 5 mana, and it is slow, but this is a ton of value. Making 3 2/2s for 5 mana is, like, fine. It's, like, not crazy, not great, not even awful. It's just, like, fine. Each opponent sacrificing a creature. It's annoying, but your opponents can plan around it since it's on a saga. They know it's going to happen, so... it's not the worst effect, but it helps you almost guarantee the third effect, which is drawing 2 cards for each opponent who controls fewer creatures than you. If you're considering playing this card, you're definitely in like an Esper Go Whitey sort of deck, which the precon is. And then this can definitely, with the first 2 modes triggering, this seems like it could very reliably beat at least 2 of your opponents and draw you 4 cards. And more than likely, in the games that I've seen it in, it's basically always drawn the full 6. So this card has been somewhat impressive. I still thought it was slow and, like, not crazy impactful or anything. But I would give this card a good rating, probably. I don't think this card is, like, embarrassing or bad or anything like that. It definitely outperformed my expectations. I figured it was a lot of value, but just way too slow. Which it kind of is, but, the value is immense. So, yeah, I'd give this card a fine to good. Blood for the Blood God. 8 black, black, red for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. And the effect it gives you is you discard your hand, then you draw 8 cards, and then this deals 8 damage to each opponent, and then you exile the spell. This card is very scary. It's very powerful. This card is like somewhat likely to cost you black, black, red at some point in the game. Maybe you can't facilitate this exactly when you want to, but with how much value this gives you, it's not hard to leave up for 3 mana if you're worried about somebody wiping the board or something like that. And yeah, you're going to refuel instantly, deal a ton of damage. This card is definitely powerful, even though you don't have, even though most of the time you won't have like full control over when you're gonna, have this happen. The best way you can facilitate this is your own Blasphemous Act, and then your 1 man in Blasphemous Act, 3 man into this, so you're 4 minute in, and you have a whole new 8 cards, which is like, you won't have a ton of mana to play around with, but at least you can like deploy first from the board wipe. But yeah, this card is definitely extremely powerful. But the fact that you don't always have control over when it's going to happen, it will happen probably for 3 minutes at some point in the game. But the fact that you won't have control over when it happens puts it like holds it back from like a great to like a good, I think, a good to greatish sort of range for me. It's definitely powerful, definitely good. It could reasonably play in most, if not all, like sort of ready like Rakdos decks. So yeah, just a good card. Good to great, I would say. Calidus Assassin for blue-black for a 3/3 with flash. It's a human shapeshifter assassin. And it has, you may have it enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has, when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to one other target creature with the same name as this creature. So it's a 6-mana flash clone that kills the thing that it clones. This is just too much mana, I think. I think the effect is solid, but there's just a little bit too much holding this card back. 6 mana is just way too much to hold up. It enters tapped, so it can't even like also block something else when it enters. It's only going to kill the one thing. If you're like an exactly Dimir Flash, where you're always just holding up your mana every turn, then like maybe you could play it. But even then, it's just going to be fine at best. So yeah, I don't think this card's very good. I'm just going to give it a not very good. Chaos Defiler, 3 black and a red for a 5/4 artifact creature demon construct. It has trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent, choose a non-land permanent that player controls. Destroy one of them at random. The effect is a bit too random for my liking. The stats just generically aren't good enough. Maybe if you're like specifically in a demon tribal deck, then like I guess, but like I would hope that you'd have better demons to play than this. 5/4 for 5 with trample is like fine stats. But the fact that you can target any non-land permanent, so you could technically blow up enchantments, which Rakdos can't normally like deal with, which is nice. But the fact that you have to choose one from each opponent, and you can't choose like all 3 from an opponent to make sure that are like help kind of deal with an arch enemy situation, just makes this card just not good to me. I don't really see this card being good, even if you like start like looping it and stuff like that. It just doesn't really. The removal is just not reliable in any way, shape, and form. The body is not great. So yeah, I don't think it's good. Chaos Mutation, 3 blue and a red for an instant. Exile any number of target creatures controlled by different players. For each creature exiled this way, its controller reveals the top card of their library until they reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield, then the rest on the bottom of the library in the random order. So if you're already in Is It Polymorph, then this is just a solid one that you can add to the deck or replace a worse one. This is one of the better polymorphs, I would say. Not that that's saying a ton, but just the fact that you get the extra flexibility of you'd pay like 4 mana is kind of the going rate for polymorph, so 5's not asking a lot, and the extra flexibility of being able to deal with problematic creatures that an opponent might have is nice. So yeah, this is just going to go in exactly Is It Polymorph sort of decks, in my opinion. Other than that, you're not going to play this card. Company Commander, 2 white-black for a 2/4 creature human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 white soldier creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have, and whenever this attacks creatures you control, gain death touch till end of turn. It's just kind of whatever, right? It comes in, gets you 3 1/1s. That's like fine. So it makes 4 bodies for 4 mana. That's reasonable. And then when it attacks creatures you control, gain death touch is also just like fine. I guess if you're in like an Orzhov tokens deck, you could like reasonably play this card, but I don't know. It's not spectacular or powerful. It's just like mediocre. It's like kind of filler to me. But at least it's like does some things. It's not just like useless filler. If you put it in a deck, it will do stuff, but it's just nothing that Orzhov can't already do with other tokens cards. Cybernetica Data Smith. 1 blue-black for a 0/1 artifact creature human artificer. It has protection from robots. And then it has pay a blue and tap this. Target player draws a card. Another target player creates a 4/4 colorless robot artifact creature token with this creature can't block. This is definitely like a sort of politically fun card. You're almost certainly going to make yourself be the one that draws a card always, and then you're going to give your opponent a 4/4 that this can freely block. But this card is just so expensive. It's 3 mana just to have this 0/1 that can die to like literally anything because it's also an artifact. So yeah, this card is just it's not good, but definitely it could be fun for some people, I guess. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. It's not good, but can be fun. Deny the Witch. 1 white, blue, black for an instant. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller loses life equal to the number of creatures you control. This card's just not good. It's way too mana intensive for a counter spell. 4 mana is a bad rate. And the upside on your, disallow is that you can hurt them a bit. For paying 1 more mana and being way harder to cast. No, I don't think this card's good. I don't think you should play this card. Really, I can't imagine a scenario where you'd want to play this card. Drakshnein. I'm going to assume that's how you say it. 4 black red for legendary artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target creature. That's nice. Equipped creature has menace and gets +X/+0, where X is the exiled creature's power, and then it equips for 2. Okay, this card's interesting. If you can cheat this into play somehow with like Goblin Welders or whatever, then this card is quite effective. Just having removal stapled onto this card, this artifact that you can, bring back from your graveyard or sack and loop it with other things is nice. And then the extra upside of, pumping your creature by a ton of power maybe here or there is cool. But yeah, this is primarily just a removal spell in an artifact-centric Rakdos deck. If you're planning on reanimating and looping artifacts from your graveyard a bunch, then this could be an effective piece to replace like a Spine of Ishsaw, or you probably run it alongside a Spine of Ishsaw, but you get what I mean. It's in that sort of vein. The exile is really nice. They don't get the thing back when this goes away like most white cards do. The creature's just exiled forever, so that's cool. Exile is always big for me. So yeah, Drakshnein. It's a pretty niche card. I'd put it in exactly like Rakdos Artifact Reanimator, but it'll be good in that deck. Otherwise, don't play it. Expository Librarian. Expository. I don't know. Sure. 2 white, blue for a 3/4 Astartes Wizard. When it attacks, you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, where X is the number of attacking creatures you control. Interesting. The effect is definitely good, but the fact that it's a 4 mana 3/4 that does nothing when it enters nowadays just doesn't cut it. And it's not like total power that you're attacking with, it's number of creatures. Luckily, you get to cast the card without paying its mana cost, but still, you have to be attacking with, 2-3 creatures. So this and at least like another creature or 2 before you, start feeling like you actually are getting somewhere with this card, I think. So that's pretty disappointing. Yeah, and plus this card has to be the thing that attacks with whatever else you're attacking, so a 3/4 dies in combat quite easily. You're very often, especially if you draw this late game, are not going to find places that you can get in and kind of keep this around and get more than one trigger off of it. So yeah, this card's just mediocre. You could technically play it in like a go whitey sort of deck, but man, it just doesn't cut it nowadays, I don't think. Exalted Flamer of Technik. 2 blue-red for a demon. It's a 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, this deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card is good. There's definitely some more demand for more gutter snipey sort of cards. So that's for 4 mana, deal 1 damage to each opponent. It's not like the best effect ever, but you would take that probably under most circumstances. In a spell slingery sort of deck, you need cards like this, and there's not a ton of them. So, yeah, you would play this probably. And then it also has the extra upside of just getting you back instants and sorceries. Sure, they're random, but they fuel the second ability and they fuel the rest of your game plan. So, yeah, this is just a good card. A real solid spell slingery is that sort of deck will appreciate this card. So, yeah, solid card for sure. Exterminatus. We'll go with that. 5 white black for a sorcery. Non-land permanents your opponent's control lose indestructible till end of turn. Destroy all non-land permanents. This card is bad. Reason is 7 mana for a board wipe is bad. I would rather just take 1 mana less for a planar cleansing, and lose the non-land permanents your opponents lose indestructible till end of turn. I don't think that that's really a relevant ability on this card at all. And I don't play planar cleansing. Compare this card to Farewell. Farewell exiles them, so they're never coming back. And Exile also gets around indestructible anyway. And I mean, the only thing you miss out on Farewell with is Planeswalkers, which is the least played card type in the format for sure. So yeah, I think this card's just not good. It's straight unplayable. I don't recommend you play this card. There's 1,000 better board wipes in white and black, and especially in white black. So yeah, I wouldn't play this card ever, really. The First Tyrannic War, 2 white, blue, black for a saga. Chapter 1, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If it contains a mana cost X, it enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the number of lands you control. Chapters 2 and 3 both double the number of each kind of counter on target creature you control. This card's cute in an X spell deck, I guess. Because it's gonna if you have a Hydra in your hand, this is essentially gonna get your Hydra even bigger, because most of the time Hydras will have green or green and then X. So presumably you would pay all your mana into it, and then you'd have however much mana you have -2 would be the size of your Hydra. With this, it just will count all of your lands and make it that big. So it kind of gives you an extra counter or 2 on a Hydra or something in a way. And then the second and third ability is definitely not bad. Doubling the number of each kind of counter on target creature you control is pretty reasonable. Make sure Hydra is even huger, larger, massive, whatever. But yeah, I would basically only play this in a Teamer X, specifically a Teamer Hydras deck. I'm not sure if any of those exist. I guess there probably are some. But yeah, only Teamer Hydras I would ever see playing this. Other than that, this card's stone unplayable. So if you're the 5 people that have a Teamer Hydras deck, I guess here you go. This card's fine for you. The Flesh is weak. 2 white, blue, black for an enchantment. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on each creature. When it enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Creatures you control with 1/1 counters on them are artifacts in addition to their other types. Non-artifact creatures get -1/-1. This card just doesn't seem good. If you play any non-artifact cards after this enters the battlefield, they're going to get -1/-1. When you do that, putting a +1/+1 counter on each of your creatures for 5 mana is not impactful. Making your opponent's creatures get -1/-1 is fine, but not for 5 mana. So all of these things put together, is that worth 5 mana? Nah, I don't think so. I think I would consider playing this card at 3 mana. 4 mana, I'm probably still not playing this card, except in very niche scenarios. At 5 mana, I can't even imagine a scenario where you'd want to play this card. It's just way too expensive, and the effect is not even that impactful. So, yeah, don't recommend this card. Gargoyle Flock, 2 green-blue for a 2/2 Tyranid Gargoyle. It has flying. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature enters the battlefield under your control this turn, you create a 1/1 blue Tyranid Gargoyle creature token with flying. This card's just filler. The rate on this card's really bad. It's going to bring another 1/1 with it. That doesn't fix the rate on this card. It specifically only triggers on your end step, not each end step. Yeah, I think this card's just bad. Just filler. Hellbrute, 3 black-red for a 5/4 Astartes Dreadnought artifact creature. It has haste. You may cast it from your graveyard by exiling another creature card from your graveyard in addition to paying its other types. I do like how this card just keeps coming back. It's kind of inevitable, and it keeps doing its thing. But this card's just too costly. 5 mana for 5/4 haste is like not really a passable enough rate with the kind of power creep we've had in Commander. Even though it keeps coming back, and you can trigger artifact synergies and bring back from the graveyard synergies and all that stuff. I just don't think this card's just makes the cut. It's got good words on it, but all of it doesn't add up to enough, unfortunately. The Horus Heresy, 3 blue, black, red for an enchantment saga. Chapter 1, for each opponent, gain control of up to one target non-legendary creature that player controls for as long as you control this, for as long as this remains on the battlefield. Chapter 2, draw a card for each creature you control but don't own. Chapter 3, starting with you, each player chooses a creature. Destroy each creature chosen this way. This card is just too expensive. The first effect is the best, which is good. Getting control of one creature from each opponent is nice. The non-legendary clause is actually pretty big on this card because you can't disrupt people real bad and take their commanders and be annoying to their game plan. So that's, even though the first mode is the best, that's actually a pretty big hindrance in our format, I would say. Chapter 2, you're probably likely to draw 3 cards off of it, but you're in 6 mana already. So, and also, notably, the first mode on this card does not give the creatures haste like most cards that do, that when you gain control of a creature, it gets haste on a turn or whatever. This does not do that, so that's also a bummer. And then Chapter 3, each player chooses a creature, destroy each creature chosen this way. Notably, your opponents can all just gang up on you and just choose all your shit and then blow up all your shit, and you only kill one thing. This doesn't have a lot of text like the other cards do. What's that green card? The one druid that when it enters you blow up an artifact or enchantment from each opponent, and then your opponents can also do that. I don't know why its name is slipping me right now, but there's like a lot of cards like that where everybody gets a choice to blow something up, but they can't blow up your things. This doesn't make those options there. Everybody can just blow up your shit if they want to. So yeah, that doesn't feel great. So overall, I don't think this card's good. This card just has too many restrictions. If the restrictions on this card were lifted, such as you can take any creature, give them haste. Second mode is fine. Third mode, they can't choose your stuff. Then I think this card would be playable, but not even that great. So I just don't think this card's playable with all that considered. Kill, Maim, Burn. 3 black, red for an instant. Choose one or more. Destroy an artifact. Destroy a creature, and then this deals 3 damage to target player. Good effects. 5 mana, even with all of these effects combined, still not worth it. Don't really recommend you play this card probably anywhere. I guess if there's a Rakdos Spellslinger deck that exists, then you could very narrowly consider it. I guess maybe. I'm just moving to the next card. The Lost and the Damned. 1 blue and a red for an enchantment. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control from anywhere other than your hand, or you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. Do not sleep on this card. This card is pretty powerful. I'm quite sure of it. 3 mana, it makes 3/3s for just doing the thing that you're going to do anyway. Play fetch lands, get 3/3. Impulse draw, make 3/3s. There's lots of impulse draw that's really good nowadays. So, yeah, do not sleep on this card. Once again, not sure 100% where this goes, but you do not need much for this card to do a lot. So, yeah, don't forget about this card. This card is good. Malanthrope. 1 green-blue for a 2/2 Tyrannid with flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Put a 1/1 counter on this for each creature exiled this way. Fine card. I would probably most like this in a flicker-based deck, like a Bant Flicker deck or something. Being able to repeatedly exile opponents' graveyards is very nice, and this is also just a fine, annoying threat that works well. And because a lot of times when you are in a Flicker deck, you have a hard time ending the game, pushing damage, that sort of stuff. And this can chip in for some damage here and there while you're being really annoying. So yeah, I think this card's reasonable in that sort of deck, but in general, in just a generic Simic deck, it's mediocre. But I mean, I love Incidental Graveyard Hate. Even though I'm the Graveyard player, I'm trying to get people to play more Graveyard Hate. as it's just an essential part of any deck, I think. The graveyard's just such a powerful resource. Why play the best card in your deck once when you could just play it twice because you only have one copy of it? So, yeah. Definitely play more Graveyard Hate. This is a fine Graveyard Hate piece for some decks. Specifically Flicker decks. Probably not +1 counters decks, though. As it's not, like, guaranteed you're going to go to 1/1 counter. And then even if you do, like, it won't feel great. Like, yeah. I would say Flicker decks, basically, only. But play more Graveyard Hate. Mawlock. X red and a green for a 2/2 Tyrannid. It has Ravenous. I guess I'll read it for this video. Ravenous is this creature enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, you draw a card when it enters. So that's kind of the Tyrannid mechanic of this set. So it's a 2-mana 2/2 that you can pay extra to make it bigger. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature an opponent controls. If that creature would die this turn, exile instead. I think this card's one of the few playable Ravenous cards that we've seen from the set. As the exile the card if it loses the fight is actually, or if it would die this turn, is actually a pretty good effect. Definitely, once again, exile is very powerful. It's definitely something you need nowadays. And this card's just on rate already, just fine. It's a 2-mana 2/2 that fights something. That's fine. But it also scales pretty nicely. And then it can even draw you a card if you really get that desperate. So, yeah, I think this card's solid. Just solid. Good red-green, solid creature. No frills. You can play it basically anywhere. Red-green decks like creatures. So this is a creature that does a thing your deck needs to do, which is removal. Which, honestly, red-green kind of struggles with. So having it stapled to a creature is extra nice. So, yeah, this card's just solid. Real solid. You'll definitely see it played. Mutalith Vortex Beast. 4 blue and a red for a 6/6 trample mutant beast, sorry. Just reading the name again, apparently. When it enters the battlefield, you flip a coin for each opponent you have. For each flip you win, you draw a card. For each flip you lose, it deals 3 damage to that player. So obviously you'd like to draw 3 cards off of this, but your chance of drawing 3 cards off of this is 1 in 8, so that's not great. Bars. But yeah, this card's just vanilla. Not very good. I guess maybe if you're in like specifically a coin flip deck, you could technically play this, but even then it won't be that great in those decks. So yeah, I think this card is like bad outside of that specific scenario in which it's mediocre. Pink Horror, 3 blue-red for a 4/4 Demon Horror. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this deals 2 damage to any target. Split, whenever it dies, create 2 2/2 blue and red demon horror creature tokens whenever you cast an instant sorcery, you deal 1 damage to any target. So it does exactly like it says. Splits it in half. So when it would die, you get 2 of them that are half of what this is. This card is, once again, a very good red-blue Spellslinger card. It's another 5 mana for dealing 2 damage to any target. Not the best rate. But you have some inevitability where if somebody wants to answer this, then you get 2 of them, and then you can split the damage up even more. And being able to do it to any target is quite nice. Unlike Gutter Snipe, which does help progress the game, it doesn't actually interact with your opponents. While this one can interact with your opponents while dealing less damage to them overall. You need that too in Spellslinger decks. While you're twiddling your thumbs and playing Preordains and stuff, you do need to interact while not sitting there and, dicking around. So, yeah, definitely. Pink Horror is a good Spellslinger card. You will definitely see this card played. Even though 5 mana is a lot. Prismaris Chaplain. 2 white-black for a 3/3 Astartes Cleric. It has Battle Cry, which means whenever this attacks, each other attacking creature gets an extra power. When it attacks, it gains indestructible to end of turn. So it attacks, it makes all your creatures get an extra power, and then it also protects itself by getting indestructible. But it's a 4 mana 3/3. And neither of the 2 effects are that powerful, even when combined. So this card's just filler. Don't play this card. Ravener. I'm going to go with Ravener. X green and a blue for a Tyrannid 0/0 with Flash. It has Ravenous. When it enters the battlefield, whenever it enters the battlefield, target creature attacks target opponent this combat if able. This card is not good. The fact that it's already like really poor on rate, you have to spend 2 mana just to get the effect of doing that thing is like bad, because then you don't even get a creature left over from it. If you actually want a creature left over from it, you have to pay 3 mana, and then you get a 1/1 left over from it. If you're ever paying Ravenous for this card, you've already lost. You can't even like flicker this card, because if you flicker it, it comes back as a 0/0, and you'll get the ETB, but then it'll die immediately, so you can't keep flickering it. So if this was like a 1/1 or something, just already a 1/1, then I could see this card like having some niche homes where it would be like fun to play and just like mess around with people and stuff like that. And once again, like a flicker based deck. But as it stands, this card I think is just so unplayable anywhere. The Ruinous Powers, 2 black and a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose an opponent at random. Exile the top card of that player's library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card, and you may spend mana or mana of any color to cast it. When you cast a spell this way, its owner loses life equal to its mana value. So that's a lot of words on the card, but basically what it boils down to is just play Outpost Siege. Playing your opponent's stuff can be like fun or whatever, but it chooses the opponent at random. So you might choose an elf player or something when you're playing Rakdos. So obviously you're not going to get like almost anything that matters for you in that scenario. And that scenario is, I think, fairly likely, as your opponent's decks aren't built to synergize with your decks. And nowadays, commanders keep getting more and more sort of parasitic, as there's not very many generically powerful commanders. Ever since we got the Chulanes and the Corvolds and stuff like that, Wizards kind of saw that the community hate it, and it's kind of moved into more narrow directions, such as making just ass loads of tribal commanders all over the place for tribes nobody ever asked for, or maybe 3 people asked Gavin Verhey for like a Magic Fest or something. I don't know. But yeah, just play Outpost Siege. Just play cards that draw cards from your deck at cheaper mana cost. You can play Phyrexian Arena, Black Market Connections. Sure, this is random and chaosy and like maybe fun for some people, but just know that if you play this card, there are much better cards you should just play instead. If you're playing this because you just like this effect and it's just fun for you, then, then have fun. Like, that's what Commander's about. But as far as, like, optimizing decks and stuff like that, this card should probably not really be in decks. The extra draining your opponent for life is just nothing on this card. I think it's just flavor text. Shadow in the Warp. 1 red and a green for an enchantment. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, this deals 2 damage to that player. Alright, so I'm here to tell you this card's good, but apparently the word's already out on that, as the price has already spiked a bunch. But yeah, this card is just good. 2 mana discount on the first creature spell you cast each turn is like a pretty hefty chunk. Notably, this is a non-creature in your creature-based deck, so that's not ideal. But red-green is actually pretty good at having flash creatures and that sort of stuff as well. So the fact that it gets this effect each turn is like pretty nice. You can reasonably build around this with just some random flash creatures that you want to play already in your deck. And it's very reasonable to like drop this on 3 and then like play a 3-drop right after it with 4 mana. And then you're like not really even hardly down any mana. And then you get this pretty nice enchantment that just sticks around and gets you mana discount and like chips some damage in. So yeah, I think this card's just solid. Good to solid. You will definitely see this card played, especially since it's been getting a lot of hype. I don't think it quite deserves like the hype and the price tag that it has now. I think it's approaching like $15 or something like that. I think part of that price is because the Tyranid deck is like bad, like quite bad. So there's not really like many cards in there to like accrue the value of the deck. So it's kind of seeming like it's getting like focused on this card. But that's a little just MTG finance thrown in there, I guess. But this card's like solid. You could play this in like a red-green, just creature-based deck, and it'll just be like solid, like real solid. Sister Hospitaller. Yeah, I don't know why I can't say that. I know how to say it, but I can't say it. 4 white-black for a 3/2 human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you gain life equal to its mana value. So Phyrexian Delver is a very, very popular card in the format. It's a 5 mana 3/2 that basically does the same thing, but it hurts you for the card's power, mana value, or whatever. So in the same token that Phyrexian Delver is good, I think that this card is good. It's 1 more mana. The life gain over the life loss is like not a big deal, but just having a critical mass of creatures that bring back other creatures, that's why Phyrexian Delver is good. Because if you reanimate it back, it brings back a friend. you can cast it, bring back something. It's just a card that like loops really well and like will do the thing that your deck already wants to do, um, and be like, just do normal creature stuff. So yeah, I think this card's solid. You definitely are not going to play it in every Orzhov deck. Obviously, you definitely want to play this in a Reanimator based deck, but Orzhov's quite good with Reanimator. And this would just be a good role player in your deck. This is just a solid card, I think. Sister Repentia. Sure, we'll go with that. 3 white and a black for a 5/1 human warrior. When it dies, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. And importantly, if you notice the frame on this card, it has Miracle for a white and a black. I love these creatures with Miracle. I think they're a really cool design. The 5/1 being able to draw this as your first card on your opponent's turn and then sort of pseudo flash it in for just 2 mana is really nice. You can surprise block them. 5/1 trades extremely well, and it'll even reward you with 2 cards back. All that being said, I know that it sounds like I'm about to say this card's good, but it's not good. It's just a really cute card, does some fun things. I'm hoping we continue to get more Miracle cards at some point in like another Precon or something like that. I really want to build like a Miracles based deck, but even as it stands, even if you play like 5-color Miracles, there's several of them that are just like not playable. And even with all of them combined, I think there's like 20 maybe, even with this set coming out at like 4 or 5 more, and that totals to like 20. So yeah, it's not really an archetype that you can really build out. And ideally, I would like it to be in like Esper or something, because the red and green Miracles are like not really that effective in Commander. So yeah, I like this card. I think it's really cute and fun. But as it stands at this moment, this card's not good. And even in the future, I don't think this card will be good. But it would be fun in like certain archetypes if they become viable, which currently they're not. Trigon Prime, 2 green and a blue for a 4/4 Tyranid. When it attacks, you put a 1/1 counter on it and a 1/1 counter on up to one other target attacking creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn. Wow, I don't know why that was so hard for me to read. So when it attacks, it becomes a 5/5 and it makes something bigger and unblockable. Is that good? Nah, not for a 4-mana 4/4 vanilla that has to attack before it even does anything. You got way better things to do nowadays. There's like a million ways to make creatures unblockable. I don't know what sort of +1 counters make my dude's unblockable deck that would ask for this, but yeah, this card's just not good. It seems like very fillery to me. It is good in the Precon environment, I guess, because I'm sure there's a lot of board stalls and stuff like that, so you might want to push in your dumb idiots or whatever, but yeah, when you do that, it puts itself at danger, so yeah, just not a good card. Tyranid Harridan, 4 green and a blue for a 4/4 Tyranid. It has flying and ward 4, and whenever it or another Tyranid you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 blue Tyranid gargoyle creature token with flying. Weird that this isn't legendary. I feel like that they probably should of the absolute deluge of useless legendary tags they put on creatures nowadays. I think it would have been nice if they would have put legendary on this, even though there's like, just this deck of Tyranids and the changelings that exist. It would be nice for the people that want to build that deck and have like a Tyranid tribal sort of deck. But yeah, as it stands, since it's not legendary and you can't reliably build around it, Ward 4 is extremely annoying, but your opponents don't really care about killing this card because this card's not good. Just doesn't really do enough. So yeah, this card's just bad. Not really going to get played anywhere. If it was legendary, I could see like some narrow circumstances where people might want to build around it and goof around or whatever, but as it stands, yeah, this card's just bad. Can't really build around it. Tyranid Prime, 1 green and a blue for a 0/4 Tyranid. It has Evolve, and other creatures you control have Evolve. This card's pretty cool and interesting. I don't think this card's like that powerful necessarily, but I think it's good. A 0/4 is likely to evolve creatures when it enters, and it has Evolve itself, so it will keep growing. 0/4 will grow whenever you play basically anything, at least the next couple creatures you play. So yeah, and then also just giving other creatures Evolve is really cool. Growing all of your creatures is definitely a thing that you're going to want to be doing in your decks that you're playing this. Like a Simic sort of +1 counters deck. This card's cool and fun. It's probably like a solid card in the decks that want to play it. Definitely not good or great by any means, but probably be a solid role player, fun card. Definitely not bad. Tizengore Shaman. Sure. 2 blue red for a 3/3 flyer mutant shaman. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, copy the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn. When you cast it, you may choose new targets for the copy. I mean, this card is not like embarrassingly bad, but of the creatures that I would put in my Spellslinger deck, this is not one of them. We have so many good non-Spellslinger cards that want to be put into those decks now. There's not that many slots in those decks to fit cards like that, and there's certainly not enough slots in the deck to fit this card. Dealing combat damage to a player to be able to copy the next instant and sorcery you cast is just all that is just it's like a fine effect, but it's certainly not good enough for like an optimized Spellslingery sort of deck. Venomthrope, 1 green and a blue for a 2/2 Tyrannid. It has flying, death touch, and hexproof, and means it's filler. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're in like a keyword banners deck, maybe. That's it. That's all I got for you. Winged Hive Tyrant, 3 red and a blue for a 4/4 Tyrannid. It has flying and haste. Other creatures you control with counters on them have flying and haste. That's a powerful effect. 5 mana is a ton though. But I mean, I guess if you're in like an is it counters deck, then like, sure, flying haste is a powerful 2 words to put together. 5 mana is a ton of mana though. But you know, it's interesting. It's cool. Might see play in a very niche scenario. Otherwise, it's unplayable. Zoanthrope, man, they're just throwing me for a loop with these names. X blue and a red for a 0/0 Tyrannid. It has Ravenous. It is flying in War 2, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target. This card is just too expensive. Once again, this suffers from the 2 mana 0/0 clause, where you have to pay 3 mana before you even get a 1/1. And realistically, you want to pay like 5 or 6 mana to get a 3/3 or 4/4, but before you feel like you got anything out of this card. And even then, the card's not even good. This card just scales bad. The effect is not good enough. Yeah, this card just doesn't seem playable to me. All right, we're on to the artifacts. There is quite a few of them, so I'll try to keep rolling through this. Canoptek. Yeah, I'm going to go with... it's probably Canoptek. Canoptek Scarab Swarm. 4 mana artifact creature insect. It's a 1/1 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. For each artifact or land exiled this way, you create a 1/1 colorless insect artifact creature token with flying. Once again, we have another card that hates on graveyards. This one makes you flying 1/1s. It basically makes copies of itself in a way. It just says tokens. This card is like fine. I guess if you're in a color that's bad at graveyard hate and you're like an artifact-centric deck, then this is something you could throw in if you care about your own graveyard. And you don't want to play like Relic of Progenitus and Lantern of the Lost and those sort of cards, but you will play Soul Guide Lantern, obviously. But at least this is another option for that sort of deck. So I could see play in narrow scenarios, but overall it's not that insane or anything. Just like fine. Mediocre maybe. Canoptek Spider, 5 mana for a 4/4 artifact creature spider. It has flying. Whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. This card's nice. Definitely not like insane or anything, but it's definitely a nice card. It doesn't have the once per turn clause like most of these sort of cards do nowadays. 5 mana 4/4 flyer is not like that impactful, obviously, but drawing you consistent cards, that's good. That's solid. The non-token artifact creature is like a fine sort of. It's definitely something you can work around. Yeah, this card's decent, decent to good, I would say. 5 mana is a lot nowadays, though, for your card advantage engine. Canoptek Tomb Sentinel, 4 mana artifact creature insect. It's a 4/3. It has vigilance. When it enters the battlefield from a graveyard, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent, and it has Unearth of 7. So this card is bad to like. No, it's not bad, but it's like mediocre if you're paying the 7 mana to unearth it. And if you play this for a 4 mana 4/3 vigilance, you're feeling quite bad, obviously. However, this card asks you to put it in the graveyard and then asks you to reanimate it with other means, so that way you can like continually loop it and doing it for much cheaper than 7. And if that's the sort of deck that you have built, then this is going to be a really good role player in your deck, because it exiles a non-land permanent, so it gets rid of basically anything forever. So if this is a card you can put in your graveyard reliably and loop, then you're gonna want this card, I think. But that's a pretty niche scenario. Obviously, there's not that many decks that do that very often. But if your deck is built to do that, then this will be definitely something better than like Meteor Golem or whatever else you play. So yeah, cards solid for those sort of decks. Canoptic Wraith. I keep trying to mispronounce this card. Canoptic Wraith. 3 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature Wraith. It can't be blocked, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 3 and sacrifice it. If you do, you search a library for up to 2 basic land cards with the same name as a land you control, then you put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then you shuffle. I think this card's bad. You have to pay 6 mana into this and attack. It's basically like a very weird Burnished Heart. However, this actually can't fix you like Burnished Heart can. Because if you are like a red-white deck and you don't have any planes on the battlefield, you can't go get a planes with this card, which is kind of stupid for no reason. And yeah, I don't know why. Burnished Heart's just better than this card, because you can just do it when you want to do it, get the lands you want to get, and yeah, I don't want to have to attack with my Burnished Heart. I would rather just block with it and then sack it in response or whatever. Yeah, this card's bad. Just don't play this card. Burnished Heart barely even gets played anymore, and this card's way worse. Convergence of Dominion. 3 mana artifact. As long as you control your commander, activated abilities of cards in your graveyard cost 2 less to activate. This can't produce the mana's cost 2 less than 1. Pay 3 and tap, mill 3 cards. So presumably you will have your commander most of the time, ideally. And when you do, you get 2 mana discount on like unearth sort of effects and that stuff. That's a pretty nice effect. 3 mana's still a little expensive for that effect, but that's nice. But the extra upside on this card is you can mill yourself 3 cards. If you have your commander, it only costs 1 to mill yourself 3 cards. So that kind of helps fuel the first ability. This card's weird. I don't think this card's like that powerful, but it's interesting, and it will probably have a home somewhere. But it'll just be a role player in those decks. This isn't going to be the most powerful card in those decks or anything. Cryptothrall, 4 mana artifact construct. It's a 3/3. Other artifact creatures you control have hexproof. This card like is almost there for me. A lot of times these sort of effects are on blue or white creatures that aren't artifacts. So they feel like cards that you want to put in your deck because they'll protect your board of artifacts. But they aren't artifacts themselves, so it kind of takes away from the other synergies of the deck. So yeah, those cards are usually a little awkward, and I usually don't end up playing them. But this one is an artifact, which is really interesting. But the key distinction here is it doesn't protect all of your artifacts, it just protects your other artifact creatures. And a lot of time, at least for me, when I'm playing artifact decks, my artifact creatures are like fairly disposable. Like most of the time, I'm the one that ends up killing them, so that way I can bring them back or whatever. So yeah, this text on this card just doesn't do the thing that I want it to do. Even though it's like it feels like it would be that card that we've been missing on. Like Padim feels like it's almost there. Leonin Arbiter, or whatever that white version is called. Leonin Alabaster. I don't remember what it's called. I think maybe it's Leonin Alabaster. It's 4 mana, 3/3, that white creature that gives your artifacts hexproof or whatever. And then there's the one that gives them protection or whatever. But yeah, all those cards are not artifacts, so this card feels like it would fill in that void that we've been missing, where we want to protect our artifacts without just having a Darksteel Forge on an artifact. But yeah, protecting my other artifact creatures is not really something I'm interested in. Maybe in like the new Urza deck or whatever that's coming out, where you actually care a lot about artifact creatures specifically, then this could be a good card in those decks. But most artifact decks just play artifacts. They don't necessarily artifact creatures or whatever. So this is going to protect like half or less of the things that you care about, which is like, I don't know about all that. Ghost Ark, 4 mana artifact vehicle. It's a 3/3 flying. It's got crew 2. And when it becomes crewed, each artifact creature card in your graveyard gains Unearth for 3 generic mana until end of turn. Unearth is a very powerful ability, especially giving it to cards that don't normally have it. 3 mana is like right there. 2 mana would just be way too insane. 4 mana would be like not good. 3 mana is like the right number here, but is the right number good enough? I don't really feel like it is. You don't really want to just throw this in some random artifact deck, right? I mean, luckily you don't have to attack with this to like get the trigger, but investing 4 mana into this, you're not likely being able to unearth. Like maximum you're gonna unearth one thing, right? If you're like late game, which can be like okay, can be like okay to good. But yeah, I don't know. This card just feels really weird for me. If you can discount this Unearth to anything, like I was talking about, as soon as you get to Unearth 2 or 1, this card becomes insane. But then you're relying on like this card, a card that's in your just 99 cards, and then probably another card in your 99 cards to do this thing. If you have that effect that can reduce this cost for like in your command zone or like always have access to it, then yeah, obviously I'd be interested in this card. But yeah, I don't think this. I think this card's just like fine. You can play this card; it'll do stuff, but I don't think it's insane by any means. Cool effect, good effect, but mana's a little intensive. It's got the right cost, and the right cost is like too much nowadays, unfortunately. The Golden Throne, 4 mana legendary artifact. If you would lose the game, instead exile this, and your life total becomes 1. You can tap, sacrifice a creature, add 3 mana of any combination of colors. I thought when I first saw this card that it was just going to be a like really bad Thran Dynamo, which it like kind of is. But honestly, this card is like the games that I have seen this card in, it's actually been pretty solid. The first effect is nothing, doesn't matter. Just ignore the first effect. If you're a deck that's playing this card, you are going to always have creatures that you want to sacrifice. So sacrificing is like kind of an upside, and then adding 3 mana of any combination of colors is nice. The colorless mana, sometimes you got to try to find ways to spend it with Thran Dynamo, and this just gives you whatever mana you need. So yeah, this card is like reasonable. It's not awful. It's not bad. It's like just like fine to like solid, I would say. But yeah, the first text is nothing on this card, even in a Phage deck, which I have a Phage deck. It's my pet deck. My favorite deck. I'm not going to play this card in there. This first effect is nothing. Goliath Truck, 4 mana artifact vehicle. It's a 4/4. When it attacks, you put 2/1 counters on another target attacking creature you control, and it has crew 2. This card's just filler. Doesn't really do anything. Doesn't really facilitate any sort of game plans or archetypes or anything. Just filler. Inquisitorial Rosette. I'm going to go with a Rosette. Inquisitorial Rosette. 2 mana artifact equipment. It has equip 3. And when equipped creature attacks, you create a 2/2 Astari's warrior creature token with vigilance that's attacking. Then attacking creatures gain menace until end of turn. This card's just too mana intensive. Like if I look at this card and compare it to a sort of X and Y, like any sort of X and Y, then it's like, wow, why would I play this card? I could just play another sword. So yeah, that being said, this card just doesn't feel like it just does enough. Then the mana's kind of intensive. 3 equip is pretty hefty ask here. Yeah, I don't think this card's really playable. Knight Paladin, 5 mana artifact vehicle. It's a 6/6 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and it has crew of only 1. This card is like baby card I'm going to talk about later, another vehicle in the set that's really good. I haven't got to test this a ton yet, but I had put it in my Greasefang deck, and I think it's probably going to be a good role player in that deck because it's going to enter and leave a lot. But your average vehicle deck, is this good? Probably not. If you're playing like Shorkai or something else, Depala or whatever, then I'm probably not playing this card. So yeah, it's just like a pretty narrow vehicle, I would say. It's good where it's good, which is Greasefang. And other than that, the dealing 4 damage, if you can repeatedly do it, will get really annoying for your opponents. But just a 6/6 with trample with crew 1, not really good enough. So yeah, this card's just like fine to bad, and nichely good in my scenario. Necron Monolith, 7 mana artifact vehicle, 7/7, flying and indestructible. When it attacks, you mill 3 cards. Then for each creature card milled this way, you create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token, and it has crew 4. Ooh, yeah, that's just way too much, and it doesn't really give you that much for doing all the work of putting in mana and then crewing for 4 of this. I'm not even really interested in putting it in Greasefang, as I'm not like super creature heavy, and this is not even a really good creature to reanimate. It doesn't really give me that much value or anything. If it was mill a lot more cards, like 5+, then like I might consider it, because I already want to mill, and getting some creatures that will block or crew other things is cool. But yeah, as it stands, 3 is just way too little, and the indestructible is just not a good enough rider to make this card worth the mana cost that it is. And it even has crew 4, which is way too much. Night Scythe, 3 mana artifact vehicle. It's a 3/1 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 2/2 black Necron artifact creature token, and it has crew 2. This is probably a good role player vehicle in your average vehicle deck. Not Greasefang, but the other ones that I mentioned. Yeah, just a 3 mana 3/1 flyer that gives you something to crew your things. It can crew this. It's good. The creature it makes is an artifact too, so it works with your other artifact synergies. Just a fine role player in your average vehicle deck, I would say. Reaver Titan. Ooh. 7 mana artifact vehicle. 10/10. Ooh. Getting all hot and bothered already. Protection for mana value 3 or less. When it attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent, and it has crew 4. Ooh. This is one of the best vehicles we've ever seen. 10/10 is just massive. Protection for mana value 3 or less is really good evasion and protection. Your opponents can't chump block it with any tokens. They can't throw their random dorks in front of it. They have to actually throw a real creature, a 4 CMC or greater creature in front of it if they want to block it. Dealing 5 damage to each opponent when it attacks is a ton of damage. And also the protection from the first ability protects from basically any removal that gets played. Turns out when people play Commander, they want efficient removal. They want Path to Exile. They want Swords to Plowshares. They want, Anguished Unmaking, Generous Gift, Beast Within, not Disenchant, but Disenchant-like effects, all that sort of stuff. Hey, it turns out those are all cheap, and this is protecting from everything that's cheap. So yeah, a really, really good protection, solid evasion, tons of damage. It gets thrown around with this card. And crew 4, turns out that's great for Greasefang, and most vehicle decks can handle crew 4 if you don't have too many of them in your deck. Yeah, this card is just an absolute house of a vehicle. It's probably like slightly worse than like Shorikai and Unlicensed Hearse, like in a vacuum, but in a like a vehicle deck, or like when you start actually playing your deck, this is a card that you're going to want to draw. It'll help you close the game and kind of move the game forward, which vehicle decks can definitely struggle to do. So yeah, Reaver Titan, one of the best vehicles that we've gotten printed. Absolute house. Love this card. Redemptor Dreadnought, 5 mana artifact creature, Astartes Dreadnought. It's a 4/4. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. It has trample. When it attacks, if a card is exiled with it, it gets +X/+X until end turn, where X is the power of this exiled card. Wow, so we just went through all that for just a big trample idiot. Okay, this card's just filler. Don't play this card. It's just a filler trample idiot. Resurrection Orb, 2 mana artifact equipment. It has equip 4. Equipped creature has lifelink. When a equipped creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. The second ability is quite nice. Lifelink is like a fine rider text sort of thing on this card. Kind of keeps you alive while you're dirtling and reanimating your creatures. 4 mana equip, that's a ton. It's definitely no Nim Death Mental either, because it doesn't equip itself back onto the thing, and it doesn't give you an opportunity to equip it back on the thing, because the thing comes back at your end step. You can only equip at sorcery speed, so you can't protect the thing until you untap and re-equip it for 4 mana. So yeah, all that being said, I don't personally like this card. I don't think it's very good. but I'm sure some people will have fun with it, and it's like not embarrassingly bad. It's just like mediocre in my opinion. So you'll probably see it at some point, but I don't think it's very good. Just too much. Spectre of Eternal Glory, 4 mana legendary artifact. Taps to add 1 mana of any color, or you can tap to add 3 mana of any one color. Activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. So it's like a really weird Thran Dynamo in your monocolor deck that can actually use colorless mana pretty reliably. I don't know. To me, it's like I would still just rather play Thran Dynamo over this card. Like always, the colored mana is just the only time I'm gonna trigger. The only time the second effect's ever gonna work is if I'm in a monocolor deck, and even then it might be sometimes awkward if I draw like 2 of my utility lands early or something. Then you know it might be I might not even get this effect on turn 4. And then it's gonna feel really awful because you really need the 3 mana back immediately from this card to feel like you get anywhere with it, in my opinion. So yeah, I just don't see myself wanting to play this card probably ever, because if I'm in a monocolor deck, I can use the colorless mana from Thran Dynamo. Probably not an issue. And then I don't have to try to jump through hoops to try to have, you know, only swamps in my deck or whatever, you know. So I don't think this card's not like awful. It's not like embarrassing. Once again, it's just like mediocre, and I personally wouldn't play it. Thunderhawk Gunship, another vehicle here. It's a 6 mana 6/6 with flying and has crew 2. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance, and when it attacks other attacking creatures you control, gain flying until end of turn. This is a really solid vehicle. Gives you a board presence immediately, gives you stuff to crew it with immediately, and then it even has some nice text of being, you know, when it attacks, it makes your whole board really hard to block, and it's a big flying idiot as well, so they are going to want to block this. Yeah, just a really solid vehicle, good role player for your vehicle deck, I would say. I probably wouldn't put it. Maybe I think this card's good enough to just put in a generic artifact deck. If the creature tokens it produced were artifacts, then absolutely this could get played in artifact decks just generically. Because just creating 3 artifacts is just good. But there could definitely be some non-vehicle decks that would want to play this, but in general, this will be mostly restricted to vehicle decks, I would say. But it'll be one of the better vehicles in your vehicle deck. Wrong direction. Finally, last card. Oh, we made it, everybody. It's the one land. It's Tomb Fortress. It's a solid card, too. It's a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. It produces a black mana. And you can pay 2 black, 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 and tap and exile this to mill 4 cards, and then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And you can only do this as a sorcery. Okay. I've been trying to look for... I've been interested in cards like this. There's the Litjara... No, not Litjara Layer Make. What's the one from Kaldheim? Whatever it's called. It basically does the same thing. You mill 3 cards, and you can return a creature back. And it taps for a blue, but you have to be in blue-black to play it. This one can slot into black decks, can slot into Orzhov, Rakdos decks, all that sort of stuff, which can't play the other land. So yeah, it's just a nice option for decks that like to reanimate creatures or mill creatures. Yeah, or just like to get value from their graveyard. It's just a land, enters the battlefield tapped, adds a black. That's like somewhat restrictive. I probably wouldn't look to play this in 3 colors. Like once I'm in like Mardu or something, I'm probably off of this, because having a tapped monocolor land is just a bit too tough in my opinion. So yeah, I think this card's just solid to find in like 2 color or mono black decks. Nothing insane here, but cool land. We like having effects like this, even if they're a bit mana intensive. Fine card for sure. All right, everybody. That's it. That's the end of the Warhammer 40k set review. In the descriptions, the other videos are going to be there. Like I said earlier, we got all the commanders rated in one video, and we got all the best of the rest cards, all the monocolor cards in another video. As you can see, it's already gotten quite a bit darker, so this video is taking a while. Appreciate you all sticking around, though. This is my favorite sort of content to do, is, you know, reviewing cards and talk about that sort of stuff. However, these videos don't normally do well, so if you like it and stayed till the end and appreciate it, please do all the algorithm stuff for me and show me you appreciate it. So, love y'all. Take care. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.